Obviously, as we've talked about, Alberta contributes a significant larger share than the other parts of Canada and kind of get the short end of the stick when it gets sent back to us. Albertans, there's a lot of Albertans that are on board for an Alberta pension plan, and there's the rest of Canada that would call us mean names like selfish or whatever for wanting it, because it's money out of their pockets. It lessens their share. How do we tackle that? How do we tackle, or do we tackle that? Do we just say, tough titties, kitty? Yes, Alberta should get its fair share, and if that means that you don't get Alberta's share, then so be it. You got to figure out yourselves. For, I guess, people that are about a unified, solidarity within Canada, how would you address that to people outside of Alberta? Not that we don't really, I think, have to explain ourselves to them personally, but how would you tackle that?
Right. Go ahead, Nicole.
I think that if you think about when you are going to help someone, if it's CPR, if it's on an airplane, and the plane is going down, you have to make sure before you help someone that your surroundings, number one, are safe, that you're able to actually help them and keep yourself safe. Or if you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks drop down, you're going to have to breathe so that you can help your neighbor. Now, I know some people will argue with me and say that they're going to, put their neighbor's mask on first, and that's okay. But as a previous flight attendant and seeing and training in that actual atmosphere, you have to put your mask on first, because there will not be enough air for you to put someone else's on and then your own. And we have an opportunity here in Alberta to actually show the rest of Canada that, hey, you have resources. If we can do it, you can also do it. Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, there are so many places that have a lot of resources. You tell Quebec, oh, hey, no, you can't sell hydro anymore. They're going to tell you to go pound sand. Of course, they're going to do their hydro. Alberta, we have our oil sands. We've got forestry. We have so much that we can offer, that we can build up our economy, and other provinces have just as much resources to help build up their own. So I think it's a model of, let's teach you how to fish again so that you can actually start surviving on your own.
Yeah, I'd agree with Nicole. Once upon a time, there lived a very great king. He was very massive, and his name was Ontario. And Ontario, this great king, like the old ancient kings, was carried around and traveled around by using 4 servants who held up his throne, with 2 poles. You know what I'm talking about, like a pallbearer, and they're in that almost that little box, that they'd sit on, kind of thing. And so here are these 4 servants, let's call them Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC and Manitoba, carrying around this great king. And then one day, Alberta hears that it can make a lot more money. He can make a lot more money for he and his family if he switches jobs. He doesn't need to carry around the king anymore. And so, of course, in the interest of his family, he decides to do so. Now, when he leaves, the king calls him selfish and calls him cruel and all of those things. But we have to ask ourselves, who's really being selfish? Is it the Alberta man who's going to provide for his family and to a larger capacity than what he otherwise could serving the king? Or is the king himself being selfish, demanding that Alberta, this man Alberta, stay in a lesser position, earning less money and not flourishing as much as he could for himself and his family, by staying around and carrying him all over the place? I don't think it's selfish for Alberta to want its own pension plan. It's fair. It's just. We have a right to that money because it's not Ontario's money. It's not New Brunswick's money. It's our money. We only receive our tranche of it. We only receive our portion of it. We only receive the portion of investment income that came from our initial, surplus to the CPP. So far from being selfish, far from stepping on the necks of other plan, it's entirely just and fair. There is nothing selfish about it at all.
There's 2 points that you're reminding me of. One is I was a guest on a podcast just 2 nights ago, and I was talking about Ayn Rand. I've read her book. She's a little bit wordy, as you may know, so I've read her smaller. When you're talking about the oxygen masks, I actually brought that up on that podcast, and just saying you need to be, or rather you can be in a better position to help those around you only when you're in a position of strength. you, versus if you're in a position of strength and you're taken care of, then you can actually be of benefit to those around you. And you guys, you're just reminding me, Tanner, of a story, and forgive me, it's a bit of a long one. I'll try to make it short. There was a farmer, and he had this pig, and this pig had one wooden leg, just this little peg-leg pig. And this visitor comes to the farm and says to the farmer, "Say, farmer, why does a pig have that peg leg?" He says, "Oh, well, I was out tilling the fields and my tractor overturned and fell on me and was about to kill me, but the pig came along and lifted it up and saved my life." He says, "Wow, that's amazing. But did he lose the leg in the accident? What happened?" He said, "Well, after that, you see, my boy, he was down at the river fishing and he got swept into the river and he was drowning, and the pig jumped in and swam in and saved the boy. And, what an amazing pig." And he said, "Well, that doesn't really explain the leg." He goes, "Why just have one leg?" He goes, "Well, you don't need a pig like that all at once." And that's kind of like what Alberta is, I think.
Yeah. Well, you talk about equalization payments too. If we were to ask people, hey, do you want to stop our equalization payments to the rest of Canada? Almost every single person says yes. But when you look at the CPP, that's actually what it is. It's not a pension plan. It's more of an equalization payment. And Alberta is paying into it. It's